Okay, hello there, GNTC government class. Let's see. So last time I can't tell whether we're going to have one or two videos today. Stuff we're looking at is pretty technical, um, and so we're just kind of looking at the difference between the House and the Senate. So last time we looked at, really their similarities. The process for lawmaking was almost identical, right? Committee, subcommittee, HTDAV, committee, HTDAV. And then the only real difference in the process was the Rules Committee on the House side, because you got more people you got to control, and the possibility of the filibuster on the Senate side. But pretty similar process there on lawmaking. All right, so now we're looking at constitutional comparisons, and then what we're going to call operational comparisons. And look at all the stuff. So this first video, and there may not be a second one, I can't tell. Going to kind of look at the time on the first one and see if that's going to be sufficient. It's like one heading, because we'll be spending a good little bit of time with each slide. So if you look at the House of Representatives over here, it's got 435 members. Remember, it was based on the Virginia plan. The bigger the state, the more representatives a state would get. California has 52. I believe Texas has 35. New York, maybe 30, pretty close to that, 30, 28, something like that. Florida and New York pretty close in the number of representatives they have. Georgia has 14, kind of a middle-sized state. There are 6 states that only have one. 5 of them are way out west. Alaska, the Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming. So the wide open states don't really have a lot. The wide open cold states don't have a lot of people living there. All right, and the only little bitty state geographically up in the Northeast that only has one is Joe Biden's Delaware. All right, so those are the 6 that only have one. All right, today it's 1 seat for every 650,000 citizens. Wyoming, at the time that I made this slide, had the smallest population. I think, some of those small states kind of go back and forth. So it didn't have enough people to have the 1 seat for every 650,000 citizens. And by the way, Washington, D.C., it's got a representative, but it has enough people in it for two representatives. But since it's not a state, it only gets one. 23rd Amendment says 23 D.C. Washington gets 1 representative. All right, and the number 435 was capped in 1910. In other words, as the country grew, the population of the country grew, the House of Representatives kept growing. I'm going to say, I don't know what the answer to this question is, but I'm going to say the original House of Representatives had 80 people in it, something like that. All right, and so it's growing over the years. But once it got to 435, the House decided we can't function if we get any bigger. If you have 10,000 people in the House of Representatives, that's going to be, and they're all writing bills, that's just going to be too much. So they capped it at 435, and so that's why the census is real important every 10 years, because when they count, the grand total is going to be 435. But if a state like Texas, I believe, has, throughout the 21st century has been our fastest growing state, and then like Michigan doesn't grow nearly as fast. So Texas gets new seats, adds new seats, while states like Michigan, even though they're not shrinking, they lose seats to the faster growing states. All right, so that makes the census real important. All right, to be in the House of Representatives, you got to be 25 years old. You have a 2-year term. Requirements are you have to have been a U.S. citizen for 7 years. Remember, presidency, you got to be a native-born citizen. You have to have been born in the United States. And you got to reside in the state. You got to live in Georgia. So Tom Graves is still our representative until we have this election. All right, and so he's required to live in the state of Georgia. Okay, the Senate has 100 members in it. You got to be 30 years. So if you look at the Senate, it's seen as the upper house. Our Congress is based on the British Parliament and the The British version of the Senate is called the House of Lords. So the Senate's called the upper house. So the qualifications a little more stringent, and you serve for longer. So there's 100 members, 2 per state, based on the New Jersey plan. Remember that? All states being equal. All right, 6-year term. So you got to be a citizen for 9 years, and the residence requirements are the same. You got to live in the state. Okay. All right. Okay. So the operational differences. The House is known as the cup. When they were describing the things, the House was known as the cup. All right, and the Senate was the saucer. All right, so in other words, we don't really do that when you're drinking tea formally or coffee formally, some kind of formal banquet kind of setting. You know, you get a cup, and then they put the little teacup in a saucer. All right. And so way back in the day, I'm told, I can't remember where I learned this, but when they would serve coffee or tea, they would pour the coffee over the top of the cup. They fill it up until it spills out into the saucer, and then people would drink from the saucer first. And so let's think about like the physics of that, and I don't know anything about science, but when you keep stuff packed in, it stays heated up, and when you spread it out, it cools off somehow or another. So people would drink from the saucer first because it cools off in the saucer, and then it took longer to cool off in the cup, so they drink from the cup after the saucer. So the House is seen as the cup. Things stay heated up. You know, it's called the People's Branch. It's the lower house, and think about it. All these people are up for re-election all the time. There's a 2-year term. So if they do anything that's unpopular, people are going to get mad at them. And so that's where you really see the passion. If you kind of think about watching the impeachment process, you know, the more heated speeches tended to be in the House. You know, everything, and, you know, things kind of move quickly in the House. Now, the people in the House, they have a more narrow outlook, so Tom Graves doesn't have to worry about what people think in Atlanta or Savannah. He's just got to look at Gordon County, the Gordon County area, and that's going to be more narrow. It's going to cause him to be a little more conservative than our senators. There are 21 standing committees. More people, you're going to have more committees. And it's not quite as big a deal to be in the House of Representatives. If you're one of 435, it's not quite as prestigious as being one of 100. All right, the Senate is the saucer, so that's where things cool off. So in other words, less bills pass the Senate. The Senate is designed to be more deliberative, all right, where people think carefully and slowly. People are all fired up, and they kind of act quickly in the House. They think kind of carefully and slowly in the Senate, and they make sure that we really want to do this. They've got a 6-year term, so if they do something, they're allowed to do unpopular things. A leader that tries to say popular just does what the people want him to do is called a delegate. And a leader who kind of does what his conscience tells him to do is called a trustee. So the House more likely to be filled up with delegates, and the Senate more likely to be filled up with trustees. They can do unpopular things at least until close to election time, because people kind of forget. You know, tell me what Johnny Isakson, what stand he took on some issue 6 years ago. I mean, I can't remember either. All right, so that gives them more kind of freedom to do what they think is the right thing if they disagree with the people in their state, their constituents. Your supporters are called your constituents. All right, so they got a broader outlook. You know, our 2 senators, Loeffler is her name. She's the lady who replaced Isakson, and Perdue. They're representing Gordon County, they're representing Savannah, and they're representing Atlanta, you know, the entire state. And Georgia's a pretty diverse state. The Senate was chosen by state legislature, so it's designed to be less democratic, small d. You know, remember way back at the beginning of the semester, we said, you know, the founders didn't really trust the people. There are today, I believe there's 17 standing committees. So let me see if I can't switch that. Can I? Maybe not. There we go. Let's switch. I think it's grown to 17. I just think the number is 17. But I mean, notice and logically, and we'll do a little bit of math here. For 100 people, you're not going to have as many committees as when you have 435 people. But we'll also take note that the committees are going to be bigger in the House. All right, because they don't have that many more standing committees. All right, it's a bigger deal to be a senator. All right, they get on TV more. It's said that every senator, when he looks in the mirror in the morning, when he's shaving or fixing her hair, or whoever the senator looking in the mirror in the morning sees the next president. All right, so it's a bigger deal. It's the upper house. They don't really rely on the people quite as much. All right, the cup and the saucer. The cup, everything's heated up. They're designed to move fast, reflect people's passion. The saucer lets cool things down, slow things down. Think about that, how that filibuster really slows things down. So more bills pass the House than pass the Senate. Okay, then you got the leadership. All right, and so far this thing's only like 10 minutes, isn't it? All right, so we may take a look at one more if I can find it. There's another one. All right. So the leadership in, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop it and get it posted. No, I'm not. I can't stop. All right. We'll just get through this one, and then we will see if I can find the other heading that I was kind of thinking about. It's a pretty good heading. All right. The House and the Senate. So the leader of the House is Speaker of the House. All right. So I put ooh-ah under there because that's to signal that this is the most powerful person in that chamber. So Nancy Pelosi is Speaker of the House. She's in charge of it. You got to kind of keep her happy. Now she's got somebody who helps her out, called the floor leader, and his job is to kind of help her get bills through the House of Representatives. Then there's a majority whip, also a Democrat. His job is to count votes. He's the vote counter. So if there's a bill before the House of Representatives, he's going to let her know if there's enough support for it to pass. So before they had the impeachment vote, she knew there were enough votes to impeach. She wouldn't have taken a vote and then they vote not to impeach. And so the whip helps the speaker, lets the speaker know how much support there is for a bill. Also make sure people show up for the votes. And then, the Republicans in the House, they've got a minority floor leader. His job is to kind of oppose what Pelosi's doing, and a minority whip to count kind of Republican votes. On the Senate side, the vice president is the constitutional leader of the Senate, but he doesn't show up. He doesn't do anything. The only job he has is to break a tie. There's this honorary position for the member of the majority party that's been there the longest, called the president pro tempore. And so the real power is, and I'm sorry, I'm sniffing. I'm sitting out here trying not to bother anybody. I'm sitting out in the garage where we keep the cat, and I'm allergic. The majority floor leader is, that's where the power is in the Senate. So that's Mitch McConnell. And so when we were watching the stuff that was going on with the impeachment and the impeachment trial, he was in charge of that. It wasn't Pence. Okay, there's a majority whip to count votes, let the floor leader know how much support there is for a bill, and then the minority floor leader, a minority whip. Okay, so there's a review. Take a look at that, pause it for a second. Okay, I'm going to go down and see if, so there's all that. I'm going to see if, I don't want to do this. I'm going to do this next time. Boop, boop, boop. Let's see. Yeah, this one. All right, let's go ahead and do this one right quick. It's just to All right, let's do this heading, and that'll be 2 headings. All right, I think I can get it done right quick. Hey, call to number 2, I'm sorry. So Congress has 3 jobs. All right, the job we've looked at is lawmaking. This job is to make laws. All right, that's what everybody's really familiar with. All right, second job we're going to look at next time after spring break. The Monday after spring break is representation. Representing their constituents, serving their constituents, and that to me is that's the thing that we know the least, and maybe it's just really important. And so they do things for us. You can call your congressman, and they'll do favors for you, help you out. Your congressman will write you a letter of recommendation to college. And then oversight. So the impeachment was oversight. Oversight is when Congress kind of investigates things going wrong with the government. So, if the president's done something wrong, impeachment is oversight. Okay, so then the question is, how good a job does it do with these 3 things? And lawmaking, I think, is where people are not really happy with Congress. If Trump says drain the swamp, he's saying, hey, Congress is not really passing the laws, addressing the issues that the people want it to. Like the Trump's approval rating, when it's up, it's around 50. When it's down, it's around 42, 43, something like that. Congress's approval rating's like 15 or 20%. Much lower, and it's been that way for 30 years. Very low approval rating, and it has to do with the perception, rightly or wrongly, that Congress doesn't pass the laws that we need it to pass. All right, it's hard to pass laws. We've looked at that, all those different ways to stop a law. It's got to go through all those steps, go through all those hoops. So people get frustrated with how slow it is. And the question is, hey, is that the leader's fault? They're not doing their job. It's the swamp, or is that Madison's fault because he kind of set things up with the checks and balances to make it hard to pass laws? All right, it's working together. As we become more polarized, it's become much more difficult for the parties in the House and the Senate to work together because of a couple of things called gerrymandering and something we're going to talk about next time called the big sort. But they both basically mean that every district in America in the House is pretty much like Gordon County. It's either 75-25 Republican or like San Francisco, 75-25 Democrat. So given that, it's not really in anybody's interest to compromise. Ever. You want to lose your job, compromise with the other side. So it's made the lawmaking function, the lawmaking job, kind of more difficult for Congress. All right. Second thing, representation. Okay. They're good at it. They're really good. If you write a letter to your representative, to Tom Graves, you're going to hear back from somebody in that office. And so they're really good at answering their constituents' concerns because they've got so much technology available to them. And I don't know, I guess your ideal, according to the textbooks, your ideal congressman would be what's called a politico. So in other words, he's a delegate when he's got to be, when he's got to stay popular in order to get reelected. He's going to do what's popular and not worry about what he thinks is the right thing to do. A lot of times he agrees, all right, with his constituents. All right, he's a politico. He's a trustee when he can. When people are really not worried about what he's doing, if he disagrees with the people, he'll be a trustee. So the politico is kind of the effective leader who listens to his conscience when he can and kind of listens to the people when he's gotta. So kind of keeps his options open. All right, pork, and we're going to look at this more extensively next time, but pork is when a congressman gets projects built in his district or her district. It's called bringing home the bacon. So if you get a new wing to Advent Hospital built, if you get a new road or bridge built, Congress passes a bill and part of that bill says, we're going to do some big project in Gordon County. It has a bad reputation because it adds to spending, but it does help congressmen pass maybe unpopular votes if if they can get something built in their district, it's going to help them stay popular. All right, and then the last one, 2 types of oversight. Remember we said oversight, that's Adam Schiff. He was the guy kind of in charge, figured very heavily in the impeachment proceedings. He was the chairman of, what was the name of that committee? He was the chairman of a committee that did a lot of the investigating in impeachment. So there's 2 types of oversight. So Congress will investigate if something goes wrong. And so that's called fire alarm oversight. Benghazi, impeachment, some big scandal. When all this is over, there'll be oversight hearings to see whether or not we responded fast enough to coronavirus, COVID-19. All right, police patrol oversight is just when they kind of bring in somebody from the bureaucracy and kind of ask them how things are going. All right, oversight is seen to be partisan a lot of times. So, the impeachment was definitely seen to be a partisan thing. All right, and so probably the area where Congress is seen as doing its job the best is the representation. Oversight seen as awfully partisan, and lawmaking is seen as just not very effective. All right, there we go. So there's the questions. Opportunity costs. So, that's an interesting question. So let's say if they spend more of their time investigating, that means they spend less of their time lawmaking. All right. Who was it? I think McConnell said sometime this week. You want to know why we kind of got caught not quite ready when COVID-19 hit? He said it was because everybody was focused on impeachment. So you focus on one thing, that means you're not focusing on something else. If they spend all their time here at home serving their constituents, they're not making laws. So the more time they spend on one, the less time they spend on others. What I mean by that opportunity cost. Okay, let's see. Looks to me like it's going to be, what does that look like? About 25 minutes? So that's about, not doing another one. That's going to be the one for today. And I'm going to send you a video. It's real good. I think I said I was going to send it last time, then I forgot. All right. So I'm going to send you a video for, the Monday. And I'll just get you to kind of respond to it. It's a really good video about the passing of Obamacare. So you'll kind of look at the role of the president, the role of interest groups, and the role of Congress. So it puts these last those 3 topics together. It's the last 3 topics that we just looked at in it. All right, let's hit this sucker. Hey, everybody have a great spring break. Hopefully this works.